Welcome to Duck Season Somewhere podcast. This episode is brought to you by the following sponsors. GetDucks.com, your proven source for the very best waterfowl hunting adventures. Argentina, Mexico, 6 whole continents worth. For 2 decades, we've delivered real duck hunts for real duck hunters. And USHuntList.com, because the next great hunt is closer than you think. Search our database of proven U.S. and Canadian outfits. Contact them directly with confidence. Trust is earned. By the numbers, 121 waterfowl subspecies bagged on 6 continents, 20 countries, 36 U.S. states, and growing. I spend upwards of 225 days per year chasing ducks, geese, and swans worldwide. And I don't choose shotguns for the brand name or the cool factor. Y'all know me way better than that. I've shot Benelli for over 2 decades. I continue shooting Benelli shotguns for their simplicity, utter reliability, and superior performance. Whether hunting near home or halfway across the world, that is the stuff that matters. Sit means sit and stay until it doesn't. No matter how well or how often trained, retrievers want those ducks as badly as we do, maybe even more. Chardog might be titled, but she's still just a dog. I'm over 50 years old and I still do dumb stuff, trust me. Retrievers are family. I wouldn't endanger my children near heavy traffic, and I'm not going to risk my dog jumping in front of blazing guns either. Gundog Outdoors' patented quick-release safety system is fully adjustable, tethers to any blind or stand, has titanium stakes for frozen ground, and a quick-release marine-grade shackle to quickly release Fido when the smoke clears. Visit gundogoutdoors.com. Connect with them on Instagram at Gundog Outdoors to see their growing line of Gundog safety and performance products. Enter hashtag GetDucks to receive 15% discount off of your first order. Mojo Outdoors, most recognized name brand decoy, #1 maker of motion and spinning wing decoys in the world. More than just the best spinning wing decoys on the market, their ever-growing product line includes all kinds of cool stuff. Magnetic pick sticks, scoot and shoot turkey decoys, much, much more. And don't forget my personal favorite. Yes, sir, they also make the one, the only world-famous Spoonzilla. When I pranked old Terry Dimon in Mexico with a smiling mallard, nobody ever dreamed it'd become the most talked-about decoy of the century. I've used their decoys worldwide, everywhere I've ever duck hunted, from Azerbaijan to Argentina. I absolutely never leave home without one. Mojo Outdoors, forever changing the way you hunt. Boss Shot Shell's copper-plated bismuth tin alloy is the good old days again. Steel shots come a long way in the past 30 years, but will never, ever perform like good old-fashioned lead. Say goodbye to all that gimmicky, high recoil, compensation, science, hype, and hello to superior performance. Know your pattern, take ethical shots, make clean kills. That is the boss way. The good old days are now. It really is duck season somewhere for 365 days per year. Duck season somewhere takes me year-round to worldwide destinations where I visit with the most interesting people. I'm your host, Ramsey Russell. Join me here to listen to those conversations. Welcome back to Duck Season Somewhere. I'm your host, Ramsey Russell, and I'm on the phone today with George Thompson, Director of Product Management, Benelli USA. How are you, George?
I'm good, Ramsey. Thanks for having me, pal.
No, man, I'm glad to be on the phone with you, man. The world sure has changed since I last saw you. Last time you and I rubbed elbows and shared some time together, we were down in good old Mexico shooting a bunch of ducks down there with Super Black Eagle 3s. Man, what a great hunt.
That was a great hunt, and you're right. Boy, has it changed since then. I'm still holding my own, shooting some local birds. No big hunts for me recently, but I'm getting out every chance I can.
Good. What in the world is going on in the world of Benelli shotguns? Because I mean, we've been talking for 20 minutes, and I know a bunch, but I don't know how to get my hands around this. There's so much going on with y'all.
Yeah, we've got a lot of stuff going on. Benelli is always looking towards the future and looking for what comes next. But this year we launched some new Super Black Eagles. First time ever, we brought the Super Black Eagle into other guns besides 3.5 inch, which may be a surprise to some of your listeners. But we're making a 3-inch Super Black Eagle 12 gauge, and we're making a 20 gauge Super Black Eagle. Which, honestly, if you had asked me 10 years ago, I would have never thought we'd do it. But we launched them this year, and oh boy, are they getting a lot of attention out there. We've also launched some new finishes in our best coating technology. We launched a centerfire bolt action rifle, which may not appeal to your listeners, but it's big news for us. And we got a whole host of stuff coming in the following years too, pal.
Wow. All right, let's break this thing down because
you want to unpack that a little bit?
I want to unpack it a little bit. Not everybody listening might yet shoot a Benelli. I, of course, have been shooting one since the dark ages. So what year was it that Benelli really hit the U.S. market? Because I remember laying my hands on an old Heckler cock, 28-inch barrel. What year? 20 something years ago. It's got to be.
Yeah, those old HKs were great guns. So, Benelli first started manufacturing shotguns in 1967. And, they were kind of a small niche manufacturer. They didn't make a ton of guns. But they pioneered this inertia operating system, which was pretty revolutionary back at that time. It still is today, in my opinion. But, it replaced gas operation. Which, gas operation's kind of dirty. It's not very, it doesn't like different loads, and you have to change cylinders or rings or whatever, where the inertia system was a much simpler mechanism that cycled a very large range of shells, required very little maintenance. And so it was kind of a new niche thing. And it wasn't until the 80s that they really made their way into the U.S. and they started getting a little bit of attention. But really when they kind of exploded was when they banned the use of lead shot, and everybody had to use steel. And it was that very year that Benelli launched the Super Black Eagle, which was the first, reliable 3.5-inch semi-auto out in the market. And then things really started happening for us then.
That really jogs my memory because in the mid to late 80s, the first inertia firearm that I ever owned, I had this. I had a guy I greatly admired. He was a backyard taxidermist, an old guy. I was a big deer hunter back in the days, and trapper and all that good stuff. It just a whole another person back then. And he had a Heckler Koch 22 Magnum inertia. Mm-hmm. And I mean, the whole gun just strips down. It's 5 or 6 pieces.
Yeah.
And I've still got that gun, and I love it. And boy, that gun's been all over back in the day, shooting a lot of stuff that you shoot with rimfire. And then you're exactly right. I grew up shooting a Remington 1100 and 20 gauge. My grandfather gave me his 12, and thinking that'd be the last gun I ever owned. It was 2 3/4 inch. I went and gave a guy $150 to Teflon coat that thing. I mean, everything, every metal piece on there's Teflon coated, because I wanted to preserve it forever. It's going to be my forever gun. And the minute steel shot came out, that changed, and that's when I ended up with that Heckler Koch Benelli, because I needed a gun different that shoot at least 3 inch, and out of 3.5 were coming out quick, and we didn't know no better. You know what I'm saying? And technology being what it was, there was a lot of compensation that went into that science, to compensate for lead. And man, that's exactly what led me on the path. And I ended up trading that gun off just in a tight. When you're a young man, sometimes you get in a tight and need money more than you need a shotgun.
Yeah, I've been. And HK imported the Benellis for a number of years, all throughout the 90s. And it wasn't until 98, I believe, that Benelli USA, the company that I worked for, was formed. And then that's when we actually started doing, more, let's just say, sophisticated sales and marketing activities. Before that, it was all word of mouth. And that's really what built the reputation of Benelli, is guys like you and your buddies saying, hey, did you hear about this new Benelli? Or I shot this new Benelli and it was amazing. And that kind of grassroots word of mouth is really what built our company.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And, you're not the only one regretting letting go of not just an HK Benelli, but any of those guns I had in my youth. There's a number of them I wish I still had.
Absolutely. You cannot. You can hardly find if you can hardly find a Heckler Koch era Benelli back from the late '80s, early '90s. They just really don't exist.
No, you can't.
Those shotguns don't exist. Whoever's got them is tucking away. But break. The truth of the matter is, I then got, I don't know, a year or two later, I then picked up a Super 90 Benelli M1, not M2, M1, and George. That gun's been on 5 continents and killed a whole lot of stuff. The last time I used it, it looked like it'd been drugged down every gravel road behind a pickup truck between here and where you're sitting on Chesapeake Bay, Maryland. That gun, it's high mileage, man. That gun had been around.
Yeah, those were fantastic guns. I mean, they're still fantastic guns today. I mean, now it's an M2. It's been updated, but those original M1s were amazing guns. And you're right, you never find them anywhere because people just don't let them go. I mean, number one, they're still using them because they still work. But number two, I mean, people just, if you have an old Benelli, you just don't let it go. You never see them on the used rack. Actually, funny story about probably been about 6 or 7 years ago. I went on a mission to find some original Benellis to put back in our collection at the office, because over the course of time they've just been depleted and we didn't have any of those original guns anymore. So we've got a sales group that covers the nation. It's roughly about 35 guys that covers each and every state and each and every Benelli dealer across the country. And I reached out to them, and not one of them could find a used Benelli on the rack. In any country, any store, nobody had any of them at that time. And but I did manage to find, we had a dealer, been a dealer of ours since the very beginning, out in Minnesota, that, God bless him, had very poor inventory management skills, I guess. And he actually had original Benellis brand new in the box in his basement.
Wow.
That he had just never, he kept getting new ones and they'd go on top, and he never got down to the bottom of the pile. And that went on for 20 years. And so I bought, he had 3 of them. I bought all 3 of them. Still brand new in the box, HK imported. There was a Super Black Eagle and there was an M1 in there. Actually, there were two M1s in there. But, yeah, you're right, man. They're just impossible to find.
Well, I'm gonna say this. Benelli has come one hell of a long way since the old Heckler Koch Benelli, in my humble opinion. In my humble opinion, it has come a very, very long ways since those days. Hey, don't get me wrong. I wish that old gun was in the back of the safe still, but I really do like the progression that Benelli has made since then. Would you agree?
I would agree. We pride ourselves on being innovators and very technology focused. So we've done a lot of improvements to the Super Black Eagle and to the Benelli semi-autos over the years. And we firmly believe our Super Black Eagle 3, the gun we're selling today, is far and away the best Benelli that's ever been produced. But I would like to point out, the heart of the inertia operated system, if you had to boil it down to one singular piece, it would be the inertia spring. Mm-hmm. And that inertia spring is that a lot of people may not have ever even seen it, but it's the stout spring that's inside the bolt body.
Yep.
On the belly. That inertia spring that is on those original HK M1s or Super Black Eagles is the same exact spring that we're still using today.
Really?
So, yeah, the heart of the Benelli, that one essential part that you would say makes the whole thing work, has been unchanged over these last 20-some years. We've added a lot of technologies, a lot of innovations to make the guns even better.
Walk through some of the changes that have evolved with these guns since that old Heckler Koch day.
Yeah, sure. So, in 2004, we had our what I consider one of our largest breakthroughs, and that is that we introduced recoil reduction into shotguns, which had never been done before. Mm-hmm. Extremely relevant, when you're shooting 3.5-inch shells, they'll beat the dickens out of you if you don't hold on to them good or you don't have a big frame. So recoil reduction was something we saw as kind of game changing in shotguns. We were the first to do it. It was called Comfort Tech. And the way that it worked is it basically split the stock diagonally. And we inserted these polymer rubber-like chevrons into the stock, and it essentially turned the entire stock into a recoil pad. So you didn't just have a little 3/4 or 1-inch recoil pad at the end. You had essentially a 14-inch recoil pad that was the entire buttstock. That was really a game changer for us that we did in 2004. At that same time, we also started cryo-treating the barrels. And that cryo-treating it's a very controlled process that freezes the barrels down to -300 and then back up to room temperature over a 24-hour period. And what that does is relieve all of the stress in the metal that's created through the manufacturing process. So the result of that is barrels that last longer, that shoot cleaner, and that pattern more consistently and densely. We didn't invent cryo treating. I'd like to say we did, but we did not. I don't really know the year that it was invented, long before Benelli started using it. But up until Benelli started putting it on shotguns, it was primarily used in like match grade competition rifles for all the same reasons that I just said. The benefits of shotguns were the same there. But we just started using on the shotguns. Also in 2004, we started increasing the amount of adjustability in the guns in the form of shims, right, to adjust for drop and cast. And we that's when we started increasing that adjustability, because we believe, obviously, a gun that fits you better, you're going to shoot better. So, it's one thing to make a great gun, but if it doesn't fit you, you're going to shoot it poorly, right? On the flip side, a terrible gun may fit you great and you shoot it well, right? We wanted to kind of maximize both and be able to have a gun that fits you well and that is the best performing gun out in the market. And we think we accomplished that. So, that was 2004. That was 16 years ago, right?
Wow.
17 years ago.
Been that long.
Yeah. And since then, there's been, another whole host of things that have come along. Fast forward to today's Super Black Eagle 3, it's still inertia driven. It's still cryo-treated barrel, but we've optimized the recoil reduction system. We're now on our third evolution of it. And that optimization is just simply about making the gun kick less and reduce that muzzle flip, while at the same time also increasing reliability, believe it or not, because that flex of the stock has an impact on the reliability of the gun.
Yep.
So we're on our third evolution of Comfort Tech. We've added Cone Tech, which is a very soft cheek piece. Those 3.5-inch shells not only will beat your shoulder, but they'll beat your face up. Because if you're holding the gun right, your cheek is pressed down against that stock firmly, right?
Yep.
So that Cone Tech is like a pillow to put your cheek on. It just completely eliminates that facial impact and vibration. We've also optimized the inertia system, in that it is able to shoot a larger variety of loads, all the way down to 7/8 ounce loads.
Wow.
So, prior to this new system, which we call dynamic inertia system, prior to that, we had a minimum load of 1 1/8 ounce, which is a standard target load. But, your reloaders at home or the guys that want to shoot, a few hundred rounds of clay birds on the weekends, they had to kind of step up their load a little bit to get the reliability out of, from the Benelli. But now with the dynamic system at 7/8 ounce or above, you can shoot it in Benelli, which, is pretty amazing in my opinion.
Yep. Y'all also done a lot of just little bitty features. Like I know the safety size has evolved. The I call it the slammer button size has evolved.
Yeah, that's all about the ergonomics and controllability of the gun. So we've increased the size of the bolt release button. We've increased the size of the safety. We've increased the size of the bolt handle itself. It's all about, when you're in the elements, when it's raining, when your hands are slick, when you're freezing, you got big, thick gloves on, you still need to be able to manipulate the functions of the gun. And it's just about, again, making the best product that we can, knowing the situations that it could be used in.
Sure. What about the old, and I hear this talked about sometimes, the old quote Benelli click unquote?
Yeah, I mean that's a real thing that happened to a very small percentage of our customers over time.
Oh yeah.
And that was the result of the bolt not being fully locked in the battery. And that was generally caused by one of two things. Either you didn't let the bolt slam home when you loaded it. You kind of rode the bolt forward or eased it forward to be real quiet. Sometimes it would not fully lock in those situations. Or if you're walking through really thick bush or growth, that bolt handle could get caught on something and just unlock that bolt ever so slightly. So what would happen is you pull the gun up, you pull the trigger, and you get a click. The gun doesn't fire, which is actually a safety mechanism that's built into it. It won't fire if it's not in battery. So, we heard about it, but it was such a small percentage of people that it wasn't really high on the priority list. But back in 2013, we finally addressed that and added a new detent into the bolt mechanism, which eliminates that from ever happening again. So all of the newer designed guns from 2013 and beyond have this easy locking system in it, we call it, which is a really simple detent mechanism that just ensures that bolt head always stays locked in the battery.
Yeah. Well, kudos. I tell you what, I I've heard it said on the internet. We'll talk about that after a while. I've heard it said that, my gun hung up or this did this or this did that. Well, I've shot every make, manufacturer and conflagration of shotgun that's come down the pipe in my lifetime, or certainly in the last 30 years. And George, newsflash, stuff breaks. Give me a ball peen hammer and I'll break that son of a gun. I promise you. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
I can break an ammo. But the reason I love Benelli, the reason I still love Benelli is because it doesn't break often.
Yeah.
I mean, what does it say that here's a question, for example, Mexico, especially after the hunt, we all showed up. Those boys were shooting. He had Berettas on his gun rack to give clients until we all showed up. Last time I saw you at that lodge, guess what he's got now? Benelli's. And he had to buy them. He had to buy them from the Mexico government because he got tired of replacing gas-operated guns. When you go to one of the most arduous, most demanding, back in the day, high-volume, constant, high-mileage type trigger-pulling event in the world was Cordoba, Argentina. And when I would show up to a lodge, let me tell you what, I knew if I was dealing with a top-shelf operator because his gun case was entirely Benelli. If it were heavily stocked to Beretta, I knew he was a broke outfitter.
Yep.
I knew he was new or starting or just getting started or broke, because all the real lodges down there, if they had 50 guns in inventory, 49 of them were Benelli. Every one of them. You know what I'm saying?
Well, that is a testament to the Benelli reliability and longevity. And a lot of that's attributed to the simplicity of the design. The less parts there are, the less likelihood something's going to go wrong. But at the end of the day, to your point, these are made by humans, and they are machine, mechanical devices that can have a malfunction. It happens.
Well, sure, it's a moving part.
Yeah,
I mean, it's physics.
Yeah.
It's not, and that's my whole point. Yeah, and point in case, I told you I grew up shooting Remington 1100s, and when those guns would get so dirty, and they would, you had to take them completely apart and brush them and do this and do that and all that good stuff. And
yeah,
I have literally shot so many times through a Benelli or gotten so much hunting in bad conditions or something, but I've literally lubricated that gun on the fly with water.
Yeah,
to keep it cycling. Where else can you do that?
Yeah, nowhere. No, I mean, when you're shooting those Remingtons, you probably had a pocket full of O-rings with you too, right?
Oh, you betcha. You betcha.
So the point is we want to make a gun that's gonna last longer in between maintenance intervals, and that if you get in a situation where maintenance is required, it's simple and easy to do. It can be done in the field in most cases. And I don't really see anybody anywhere close to Benelli as it relates to that. Our guns will last longer between maintenance intervals. And when and if something does go wrong, it's pretty dang easy to fix it, because 100% of our parts are interchangeable from one gun to the next. A Super Black Eagle 3, that was the second one off the production line. Every part on that gun is completely interchangeable with the last gun that just came off the production line 2 minutes ago.
Absolutely.
And that's attributed to the extremely tight tolerances and quality controls that Benelli has in place. We still have parts in stock today for some of the first guns that we made in 1967. And a lot of that is because it's the same part that we're using today, right? Things like hammer springs or carrier springs. I mean, these parts are the same in every semi-automatic that we produce. So kind of going off on a tangent there, but maintenance in the field is something that, nobody can touch Benelli on. Reliability and longevity in between maintenance intervals, something you can't touch Benelli on. But at the end of the day, it is a machine. It can fail. You do need to take care of it. I love hearing stories about people that have never cleaned their gun. I mean, that's a testament to the build quality, right, and the design of the gun. But at the same time, I'm like, man, you probably ought to clean that gun.
I clean my gun, but I don't clean it like my grandfather taught me to clean it. My grandfather would roll over in his grave. He knew how. We'd come in from, if I shot 4 times in a dove field, when I was growing up, we came in and we cleaned those guns. I don't mean just wipe off the barrel. We cleaned them. It's just not, I'm sorry, Granddad, I don't do it like that anymore. I don't have to. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When really and truly, when we get in the grinding mode, when it's in the, gosh, especially in those hunt to hunt stretches into 50, stretches into 60 or 100 or whatever days, or when you're on these high volume hunts around the world, when I know it's time to do something with this gun, I need to clean it this evening, is when it starts throwing powder back in my eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And now, I do. I get around salt water, and again, I mean, my way of cleaning a Benelli on a sea duck hunt is in the shower. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I take it apart, rinse it under hot water, and wipe it off. You know what I'm saying? Hey, you were talking about
you really
maintenance.
Don't need anything.
No.
You really don't need anything besides a rag and some kind of gun oil and some hot water, and that's 99% of what you need to do even the most detailed maintenance on a Benelli.
Really, and I'm not speaking for Benelli. I'm speaking for old redneck Ramsey Russell here. But I marinate my action, and if I'm out in the field and it's starting to run dry, and I don't have oil with me, I will put some water in that action just to knock it out and keep it going. And but an air compressor and an oil rag, that's about all you need. That's all I really needed to clean that Benelli. Just knock that powder out of the action and off the parts.
Yeah.
Put it back together. And I'm back in business. More than duck hunting, get ducks is the lifestyle we all enjoy. It really is always duck season somewhere. Check out our caps, t-shirts, hoodies, and more at our new getducks.com store. That's getducks.com/store. Thank you for listening to and for supporting this podcast. And remember, life's short, get ducks.
I learned to clean them the same way I learned how to clean a black powder gun, which is, you boil some water.
Absolutely.
and you just dump it over the action and shake it out, right? I mean, it's really all you need to do. Put a drop of oil on wherever there's metal to metal, and I mean a drop, no more than that, and you're done.
Yeah. George, speaking of maintenance, the heartbeat being that butt spring that drives the whole inertia system, how often do you recommend that those springs be replaced? Because I do replace mine regularly. Just because somebody said, well, how often does it need? I go, I don't know how long it needs it. I just do it. Because that is the heartbeat.
Well, so I was referring to the heartbeat being the inertia spring, which is inside the bolt body.
Oh, I see. Yeah. I'm speaking of the butt spring. Yep.
Yeah. The inertia spring is what gets it going. The butt spring is what sends it back home. Right.
I see. Yep.
So that inertia spring, frankly, you don't ever need to do anything to that.
Right.
I don't know that I've ever seen one wear out. It doesn't require any lubrication. Very little, if any, like powder residue or gas. Nothing will get in there. It's like it's housed inside that bolt for a reason to protect it.
That's right.
What you're talking about is that return spring that's in the butt stock.
That's right.
Which I'll tell you, Ramsey, that return spring in the butt stock probably accounts for certainly more than half, maybe even upwards of 70% of the guns that we get in for service into our repair facility. Mm-hmm. And they're not coming in because that spring's broken or damaged in some way. It's coming in because people never clean it.
Right.
And so I'm glad that you asked that question, because if people are listening and they actually do what I'm about to say they're going to do, that's going to almost guarantee their Benelli is never going to have a problem, right? It's never going to have to come in for service. And so that spring, it's kind of like out of sight, right? You can't see it because it's inside the butt stock. You kind of know it's there because something is sending that bolt back home, but you don't, out of sight, out of mind, right? But being in the back of the receiver, it does get some unburnt powder and some residue. And, you walk through any kind of thick brush and you get little bits of vegetation in your action, it's going to find its way back to that recoil spring. Mm-hmm. Because that's just where things want to go in the action, right? They want to go
standing and waiting in water. How many times I look down and I'm standing in water, wading through water, and and the water line is up, over the stock of the gun, over the butt stock. So it needs a little TLC every now and again. Yeah,
it does, but it's super easy to do.
Yeah,
it's super easy. I'll give you the description for a really old gun, and then I'll talk about the newer ones. So a really old gun, what you have to do is take the butt stock off, and then kind of field strip the gun, which means pull the trigger mechanism out, take the barrel off, take the bolt assembly out. So you just have, at the end of that, you'll just have the receiver with a tube sticking off the back of it. And you'll have a magazine tube in the front of it, but we're not going to worry about that magazine tube. So what you want to do then is use like a wooden dowel or a stick or even a screwdriver and depress the plunger that's at the back of the receiver. And you just need to push it down like 1/4 of an inch, just enough to break the seal that's on the top of it. Mm-hmm. And you just flush it out. You can flush it out with just straight like brake free if you wanted to, because that'll clean and lubricate. But when I do it on my personal guns, I usually will use like a gun scrubber or even like a brake cleaner or something.
Yeah.
That'll like has a little bit more pressure behind it and will just kind of dissolve and push all that powder down the tube. Because at the bottom of that tube, near where the butt pad would be, there's a little weep hole. Mm-hmm. And everything that you put in from the front will drain out on the bottom. So what I do is I just spray that gun scrubber in there essentially until it comes out the same color that is going in. If you've never done it, it's going to come out black and brown and nasty looking, right?
So you're reaching in through the receiver with a dowel and pushing that button down and then squirting up in there to get up in that spring housing.
Yeah,
Okay,
you've got to clean the inside of that tube, because inside right. there's actually a couple of springs in there. It's not just one single spring because there's actually a buffer a system in there too, so that if you are shooting like way overpowered loads, it doesn't like blow out the back of the gun. So you just want to flush that out from the front to the back, from the muzzle end to the butt pad end. And you just put that gun scrubber in there until it comes out clean the other end. Set it up for a few minutes and let it dry, because that gun scrubber, brake cleaner will evaporate, Once it's dry, you depress that plunger again, put a few drops, maybe 6, 8, 10 drops of oil in there. Work that spring back and forth to get that oil moved all throughout the mechanism, and then you're done, right? Now, the newer guns, you can actually pull the plug that's at the end of the spring off if you wanted to. It's super easy. I believe it's a 17 millimeter wrench that you would put on there. If I'm wrong on that, sorry guys, but I'm pretty sure it's a 17 millimeter. And you can just unscrew that plug that's at the end of the recoil spring off, and then you can take the parts out and clean them as you would, any other gun parts with a toothbrush, or to clean the spring tube itself out, you could use like a 410 brush or a mop. You're not going to need the scrub. It's going to be just loose residual stuff that's in there. And then you clean it out, put a little bit of oil on it, put it all back together. I would strongly recommend that if you hunt the way Ramsey Russell does, that you do that at least once per season.
Yeah.
If you hunt more like the way an average guy does, once every couple of years will probably be fine. Unless of course you submerge it, or you drop the gun in the drink, or it gets mud just caked all up in it somehow. But that's like a once every few thousand rounds operation is what that is.
Yep. Change the subject. When I think of Super Black Eagle 3, I think of the preeminent Benelli 3.5 inch. That's just kind of what that gun, that standard was, Super Black Eagle 3.5 inch Magnum. But we kicked off the show. Y'all have, that gun has started to evolve. Now you've got 20 inch. Now you've got 3 inch, 12 gauge. What's driving that? Why is that coming along? Why is it coming down the pipe? What's driving that, George?
There's a couple of things there. I mean, obviously people have been asking for it for a number of years. When I would work the industry SHOT Show, or I'd work the NRA show, or even small DU type events, people would always say, does that Super Black Eagle come in 20 gauge? And the answer was always no, but we make this M2 or M1 in 20 gauge. It's a great gun, blah, blah, blah. So there's always been kind of consumer demand for a 20 gauge Super Black Eagle, but we really didn't think it was justified or needed, because we had other products that kind of filled that void. But over the course of time, in particular, the last 10 years, ammunition's come a long, long way.
Boy, has it.
And, with different brands entering the market like Boss, or different technology like TSS, it's just leaps and bounds from what it used to be. And so for us, Super Black Eagle always means the pinnacle of waterfowl shotguns.
Yep.
Right? And the pinnacle of waterfowl shotguns for us has always been 12 gauge, 3.5 inch, and not because you need 3.5 inch, but because you can use any 12 gauge loads in it, right? And that Super Black Eagle's kind of stayed as a 3.5 inch because it is the best waterfowl gun that there is, right?
Yep.
Regardless of the situation. But as this ammunition's been developed, we've had to come to the realization that 20 gauge kills just as good as a 12 gauge can. So you don't have to have the Super Black Eagle kind of sequestered in this 12 gauge 3.5 inch area anymore, because 20 gauge is a very real duck gun if used in the right situations. And hell, even 28 gauge can be a real duck gun if used in the right situations.
Right.
So we kind of opened our eyes a bit more. I mean, Super Black Eagle to us is still the pinnacle of waterfowl shotguns. But with this new ammunition that's been developed, we've decided it was time to bring it down into a 3-inch and a 20 gauge version. And man, people are really happy about it. I don't know how else to say it besides that. It still checks the box for us as fitting the core value of the Super Black Eagle name. It's this 20 gauge is something special. Let me tell you, it is true to form. It's a Benelli, right? It's got all the newest technology that we have, but at its heart, it's still an inertia operated, ultra reliable duck slaying machine. I mean, it really is. It's just lighter, thinner, and points way faster than a 3.5-inch gun does.
It's just such interesting times we're living in, because I can remember being, a young man and younger, a kid, high school, and I can remember graduating from a 20 gauge to a 12 gauge, and now it's not the same thing. And I'm if I had to point one brand name that has led the revolution of sub gauge, I'd say Ball shot shells. Because they reversed the tide on 4-inch magnums. I mean, they brought back reasonable shells and stuff like that. But I marvel at the fact that I've got a 23-year-old son that for the last couple of years has shot 20 gauge. He's hung up the 12 gauge, gone back to 20 gauge, and swears by it. I guarantee you he's going to get in line for that Super Black Eagle 3 20 gauge.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, right? Because you mentioned the progression, right? You start out with a 20, you kind of graduate up to a 12, and now you're graduating yet again into like this master class, which is now you need another 20 gauge. It's kind of funny how that works, but you're right. Boss is a really innovative shot shell company. Obviously, we're friendly with those guys. We think they make a great product. But there's a whole lot of really good ammo companies out there, and that development of hard hitting shot, if you will, is really what drove the development of our 20 gauge gun. Because it 20 gauge doesn't, it's not relegated to a dove gun or a pheasant gun. It'll kill a goose. It'll kill a duck, right? You just got to, use it in the right situations.
Yep. Are you seeing in the same way that you saw a demand for the 20 gauge Super Black Eagle 3? Now, are you seeing feedback or demand for even smaller gauges?
We are. Market wide, one of the most shocking things over the last couple of years has been the use of 410s for turkey. You're probably very familiar with that.
Yeah.
And that's being driven by this shot shell development. Yeah. They're killing turkeys at 40, 50, 60 yards with a 410, which is like unbelievable. But with that, we're getting a lot of requests for even smaller than a 20 gauge. And we'll have to see what the future holds as it relates to that. But you bet we're getting requests for it all the time.
What about this new best coat y'all have come out with? I haven't yet laid my hands on one, but I got one coming. Tell me what is it? What is it and why is it?
So Best is a proprietary finishing technology that Benelli has developed. And it's actually one of the very first things that I started working on when I took over the Benelli line 15-something years ago. Because I grew up hunting sea ducks in saltwater. And, it doesn't really matter what brand gun you have. If it's a blue finish gun and you take it out in saltwater, by the end of the day, you're going to start seeing some rust signs on it. And so it's just kind of something I grew up with. And as I started working for Benelli and took over the Benelli brand, I was like, look, we're making the best guns out there. But we're making them to be used. I mean, we're hunting waterfowl, right? I mean, a lot of times people are hunting in water and these guns rust. We need to fix this. So, it's actually a project that I kind of started 15 years ago with we need to solve this rust issue. And it finally came to fruition about 2 years ago with this new technology. And I say I don't want to be overly scientific for a couple of reasons. Number one, I'm not a lab rat. I'm not an engineer. But I also want to make sure your folks listening kind of understand the benefit, right? They don't really need to know exactly how it's applied because they just want to know what it does, right?
That's right.
And what it does is it eliminates rust from the equation. You can take a gun that has this best coating on it, and you can throw it in the salty marsh behind your house, and it will never rust. And when I say never, I mean ever, right? We put a 25-year warranty on it.
Jeez.
But these guns will never, ever rust. And, you can use them. You can put them away wet. You can spray them with salt water. You can do whatever you want to do with these things, but they're never going to rust or corrode. Now, as a secondary benefit, it's also super hard, which means it's damn near impossible to scratch it. Which, if you're doing a lot of boat hunting, that's important, right? Because your guns are getting jostled around in the boat. Maybe you use a case, maybe you don't, but those guns seem to get the dickens beat out of them. These best finished guns are going to hold up incredibly better than anything else does out in the market. And
best is best to spell capital BEST. What does that stand for?
I mean, it's really simple. It's just Benelli Surface Treatment.
Okay. That is easy.
Yeah, we like to keep things simple, right? So I've talked about what the benefit is, right? But I do want to give you just a little sliver of the science. Okay, it's not a paint, right? It's not something you spray onto the gun, and it's not a camo film that you dip onto the gun. It's not a hydrographic. This is actually a process that bonds to the metal at a molecular level. So you can't take this stuff off. I mean, once it's on, it's on. And it just lasts forever. But basically, it's a hybrid physical vapor deposition process. And I say hybrid because your typical physical vapor depositions have to be applied at a very high heat. This is the physical vapor deposition, PVD is what that actually is. A lot of your listeners probably heard of PVD finishes before. Mm-hmm. They put PVD finishes on car parts. They put it on knives. They even put it on some gun parts, I should say. But that's all applied at a very high temperature. And if you use that same process on a shotgun, you're going to ruin the ballistics of the barrel because it will warp the barrel. It's at such a high heat. So what Benelli has done is developed a process that's a hybrid PVD, PECVD technology applied at a cold temperature so that you maintain all the ballistic properties of that barrel. That's the scientific breakthrough with this. It's not necessarily the PVD process. It's that we've been able to engineer the process to be done at a cold temperature to maintain the ballistics of a barrel. Nobody else in shotguns does that. Nobody else in firearms does this proprietary finish that we have. You will see PVD finishes on things like semi-automatic pistol slides, right? Because the semi-automatic pistol slide is a big hunk of metal, right? You're not going to warp that. But when you consider how thin a shotgun barrel wall is, it's very easy to warp that at a high temperature.
That's pretty incredible stuff right there. I mean, it sounds like the treatment of a lifetime for a lot of us guys that like to have a gun for the rest of our lives.
That's actually a concern that I think about way too often is we're making the best guns out there and we're essentially making them to last forever. So at some point, are we gonna make such a good product that we put ourselves out of business?
No, because people like me will just keep buying them and putting them in the safe. Why have one? I need 5. I need 10. You can't have enough shotguns. Are you kidding?
No, I'm a firm believer in that. But I mean, we do make these products are amazing. This best technology is amazing. we've got some pretty cool videos on our website about the science behind it and how it's applied if folks want to check that out. But the real world proof is in the pudding, right? Talk to people that have it, and you're going to hear nothing but praise. I did a third grade science project, because that's about as high as my science skills go. And that I took a barrel and I chucked it into a saltwater marsh behind one of our other product managers' homes. And, I say saltwater marsh because this is important, right? Because to get rust, you got to have the corrosive, in this case, salt or water, but you also got to have oxygen, right? Mm-hmm. If you just put it at the bottom of the ocean, yeah, it'll rust like the Titanic rusted, but it's going to take 100 years, right? But you take that and you expose it to a steady stream of saltwater oxygen. That's when what really kicks that rust process into high gear. Right. So this saltwater marsh is bone dry, 8 hours a day, and it's underwater the other 16 hours of the day, as the tide comes in and goes out. Yeah. I threw it out there with the idea of leaving it there for a couple of weeks. I forgot about it for 6 months because you know how life is. You get tied up, you get doing other things. It wasn't like an official project. I didn't have like documentation behind it. And I didn't remember it until I found a gun in my office that was missing parts. Oh. And I said, where the hell are these parts at? And I had to think about it for a couple of days before I remembered that I had thrown them in the river behind Brett. Brett is the guy that my product manager, whose house it was. I said, I threw them in the river behind Brett's house. I said, oh crap, right? So I had him go fish them back out of there, and he brought them in. And dude, they looked brand new. You couldn't even tell they were in the river.
That's good stuff, George.
I mean, that right there is what turned the switch for me, where I was like, holy cow, we got something here. I sat through all the scientific presentations, and I saw all the machinery and all of their crazy laboratory testing that they've done on it, which is super impressive, right? But I'm like, yeah, that's real cool, but, I'm going to go out in a duck boat, and I want to know if it's going to rust, right? And, dude, when I saw this barrel come back from that marsh, I was blown away.
Well, now, is this new best coat, is that going to be across all the black-colored platform shotguns in the Benelli lineup?
That's a great question, Ramsey. Right now, it's not, right? Like, long-term, potentially it may be. Like, that's kind of my vision for the future is that this replaces black.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's going to be feasible. Right now, there are 2 machines in the world that are capable of applying this finish, because these machines are actually built inside the Benelli factory. So they don't make just guns. They make machines to make guns as well, which is like kind of mind-blowing in and of itself. But there's only 2 machines in the world, and the capacity, the number of parts that they can put through these machines limits the number of guns that I'm able to offer.
Actually, yep.
So right now I have 4 guns that I offer with best treatment. I offer a Super Black Eagle, of course, and I offer an Ethos, which is our 3-inch platform. Mm-hmm. Now next year in 2022, I'll absolutely have some additional guns, but I'm not going to disclose what they are right now.
Right.
And, in the last 10 months, they've built a second machine. So when we launched the Super Black Eagle with Best, they only had 1 machine. We've since built some additional capacity, built a second machine, and we're going to continue to build on that capacity as the demand continues to build out in the market.
Mm-hmm. Last question. Last topic. When I was a young man, all the TV commercials proliferate with a stockbroken commercial, E.F. Hutton. And when and the way the commercial ran, a lot of young kids don't know who he is today, especially in social media. It tells, but when E.F. Hutton talked, everybody listened because he knew what he was talking about. Okay, that was kind of the gist of that ad campaign. Mm-hmm. That was way before social media. You don't know who these guys are on social media. If somebody
Yeah.
jumps into a social media thread, why somebody would ask a billion people on Facebook their favorite shotgun, I have no idea. Because you're going to get a billion different answers. You know what I'm saying? I want to talk to E.F. Hutton. I want to talk to somebody that shot a bunch. I want to talk to somebody that's had problems and out in the field and yada, yada, yada. But I remember it hit such a fevered pitch a couple of years ago that I myself walked out to the shooting range and shot down range to see what my shotgun was doing. It worried me. I done killed a whole bunch of birds with it, but it got to me, and there was this big topic going around. I didn't ever hear E.F. Hutton weigh in, but everybody else did, and there seemed to be a prevailing thought that Super Black Eagle 3 shot high and to the left. According to some people, it was 18 feet high and 30 feet to the left. I mean, depending on who you ran, you pull the trigger out front and it hit something behind you the way that thing was shooting. And I went out and shot it, George, and I had no issues whatsoever. I don't put it on a rest. I don't put it on a sled. I back off. I look at my target, and I shoulder it and give myself about a 1 Mississippi count at most. And boom, I just shoot like it's a bird sitting on the water. And my pattern was just where I wanted it. I would say that in a 30-inch, 40-inch circle, it was skewed maybe just a little bit more pellets at the top, which if you get around these old live pigeon shooters, that's exactly how they want their shotguns to perform. Was there any truth or where would Benelli weigh in with the myth that I believe based on my shotgun? Maybe it's the way I'm shooting. Maybe it's the way I hold the gun. Maybe it's the way I target practice. But what would Benelli say? What is the official spin on that? The official take on that?
I would tend to rely back to Mr. Hutton, like you just started off this conversation, and I'd ask yourself because you're about the closest thing to that I know of. An expert that's kind of been there and done that, and you can trust. So hearing you say that the guns shoot well for you, that's good enough for me. But I challenge folks to talk to other people like yourself, Ramsey. Talk to Tony Vandemore, right? Talk to
practically
Chad
everybody
Beck.
I know.
Talk to our 3-gun team. Talk to all the professional people that shoot Benellis. They're not shooting them, because we're paying them millions of dollars. I can promise you that's right. Not the case. They're shooting them because it's the best product. It's the best tool for the job. But that is a valid question, and I'll give you the official company response on that. So obviously Benelli takes a lot of pride in the products that we produce, and we do believe they are the best out in the market. So when we first started hearing this stuff, we took it extremely seriously. And when I say extremely seriously, we started quality testing 100% of the guns coming off the production line for point of aim versus point of impact to within our specifications. And that continued for many, many, many months after these guns were launched. And then over the course of time, obviously, it got back down to 50 and then 20, and now it's at kind of a normal quality rate. And all of that testing that we did, which was tens of thousands of guns, we didn't have any of them shooting out of specifications. Right now, I want to be very sensitive because somebody that owns a Super Black Eagle and has shot it and believes the gun shoots high, perception's reality. And if this person's not happy with their gun, I want the opportunity to make it right. And that's what our warranty is for, right? We have the best warranty in the business, and we stand behind our products 100%.
Amen.
So if somebody's not happy with it, give us a call, give us an opportunity to talk to you about it and see what we can come up with as a resolution. So, but we dug into this, right? And a few things that we came to realize over time. First of all, when you're on the top, people like to throw rocks, right? And we believe we make the best products out there. A lot of people believe that we make the best products out there. But there are a few people that think other products may be better, and they want to throw stones at us whenever they get the opportunity to. That's their right. They can do so. The only recourse that I have is to offer up the Pepsi Challenge whenever they want to take it. Nobody likes to take that, so I don't get to do it very often. But anyhow, so I think that's point number one, is that when you're when you're at the top, people like to throw stones. I mean, look, this might be a bad analogy, but how many Tom Brady haters are there out there, right?
Good point.
I mean, the man is his stats don't lie, right? And our stats don't lie either.
Amen.
So it's real easy to throw stones at the guys on the top. But we dug into it, and this social media thing is a real part of our world, and it does bring people out of the woodworks that you perhaps would never hear from. And so we started reaching out to people. We'd find a post that said Super Black Eagle shoot high, and we'd monitor it, right? And we'd directly reach out to people that were saying they had a gun and that shoots high. And what we learned is that like 95% of these people didn't own a Benelli. They heard that it shot high.
That's right.
Right. And they heard it from a guy who also didn't have a Benelli. So it's like this weird.
They didn't hear it from E.F. Hutton, did they? Yeah.
No, they didn't.
Right.
It was like this weird kind of snowball effect that somewhere, somehow, somebody started this rumor, if you will, and people just started buying into it without, any proof or verification of it. There's the fact that people like to throw rocks. There's the fact that people like to just be experts in this social media world when, in fact, they probably don't know anything about what they're talking about. And then you have a very small piece of these people did actually have a concern with a product that they had purchased, right? So in talking to them, we learned a few things. Number one, that they were trying to aim their shotguns, right? And you don't aim a shotgun, you point a shotgun. And when you try to aim a shotgun, a few things happen. Number one, and most importantly, is your eye no longer becomes the rear sight. Whether it has a mid-bead or not, you tend to pick some other point on the gun to align with the front sight, and you're shooting it like a rifle, which is the exact wrong way to use a shotgun. And so, I think there was an education component out there that people just didn't know any better. And along with that, you have very different trains of thoughts about if a gun does have a mid-bead, how it's supposed to be used, right? And if it's used improperly, that mid-bead turns into a rear sight, which again means you're aiming the gun, not pointing the gun, right? Another problem. But if you're a trap shooter, you were taught to do what with the beads? You're taught to stack them like a snowman. Right? Because in that very specific use, the targets are rising. It was always better to be a little high than anything else. So you stack the beads, that kind of builds your lead in to your sight picture, if you will. In all other types of hunting, that's not. I want to be careful how I say this because I have no doubt somebody's waiting to argue with me. But in all other types of hunting, I would suggest that's not the right way to do it. Mm-hmm. The right way to do it, the right way to use the mid-bead is just for lateral alignment, left and right alignment. You shouldn't be using a mid-bead for vertical alignment. Because as soon as you start using it for vertical alignment, again, what you've done is created a rear sight and negated your eye from the equation, right? So if you're pointing a shotgun properly and you are getting a high point of impact, we've already got a solution for you, and it comes with the gun. That's what your shim system is designed to do. By adjusting the stock up or down, you're moving your eye up or down, which is going to affect the point of impact of the shotgun. Now, that only works if you're using the shotgun properly, if you're pointing it, using your eye as the rear sight, right? If you're fixated on that mid-bead and shooting it like a rifle, you can move the stock wherever you want to. It doesn't matter because you're going to line up the front and rear sight the same every time, right?
Yep.
But if you're pointing it and using your eye as the rear sight, just changing from one shim to the next one down is going to move that point of impact 4 to 6 inches, right? And you have 4 different shim adjustments that come with the gun right out of the box. So I think there's a number of things that created that situation of the Super Black Eagle shoots high. You got
and
people
mostly,
like to throw
mostly
rocks.
it was people. Mostly it was people unknowingly just spreading rumor just because. I mean, that's my take on it. That was my take on it. Because for the record, I do not use the mid or front beads on a shotgun. Some of my favorite shotguns, the bead broke off due to my abuse years ago, and I could care less. I don't use the beads. You know?
Yeah, you really shouldn't, because you should be looking at the bird. I mean, why are you looking at the sight when you're not shooting the sight?
That's
you're
right.
The bird.
That's exactly right. I look at the bird.
So yeah, I mean, I think it started from a few people wanting to throw rocks at Benelli. Then you had this kind of snowball effect take over because of the social media world. Everybody knows everything, right? And then you had an education component and a proper use component that people didn't really understand or didn't have explained to them how the gun was designed. So I think those three things kind of created that situation. I mean, I'm here to tell you with a certainty, there's not a darn thing wrong with the guns in general, right? You make enough of anything, again, they're machines, they're mechanical devices. Things can go wrong. They're built by humans. They're not built by God. So that's why you have warranties, right? But by and large, there's not a darn thing wrong with the guns. And I would say, you know, if you have any customers out there that are having a problem, give us a call. Let us talk to you about it. And we'll figure out a way to make you happy. We're not concerned about that.
Well,
we want you to be happy with our products.
I will say this, George. I will say this. Benelli has got incredible customer service. I've called them 3 times since the mid-90s. I've had to deal with them 3 times, just minor issues. I mean, because it's a moving piece shotgun. It's not an anvil, and I've had to send guns in 3 times in, I can't even do the math, since the mid-90s. You know what I'm saying? And it's always been absolutely some of the best customer service I've ever encountered. And either over the phone or in the whole handling process. I couldn't ask for more.
Thank you. Well, we're proud of the products. We're proud of the company we work for. We're passionate about shotguns, about hunting, about target shooting, and we want folks to enjoy using our products. So I think you'll find our team is pretty happy to make you happy.
I'll close out this episode by saying this, that I have shot Benelli shotguns. I love to shoot Benelli shotguns. I've shot a lot of ducks and a lot of species on a lot of different parts of the world. Never leave home without them, and that is a fact. I never leave home without a Benelli shotgun, and now y'all know why. George, thank you very much for being here today. I've enjoyed it, and I've actually learned a lot about my favorite shotgun, and I very, very much appreciate your time and taking time from your busy schedule to explain all the nuances of Benelli. And I'm excited to see what's coming down the pipe, because y'all just continue to innovate.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure to chat with you. Of course, I'm happy to come back at any time. As you undoubtedly realized, as your listeners realized, I can talk all day if you let me. So thanks a bunch. Thanks for everything that you do. All your listeners out there, thanks for everything you do. Thanks for supporting us. If you don't support us, give us a shot. You'll be happy you did. And I hope to see y'all in a blind soon.
Folks, thank y'all for listening to this episode of Duck Season Somewhere. You've been listening to my friend, George Thompson, who is with Benelli USA. See y'all next time.